Hello, everybody, and welcome to AI People. Today, we're talking to Jared Zoneraich, who's the founder of PromptLayer, which is a platform for companies to manage prompt engineering in LLMs. Greetings, Jared.
Hey, Ben, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. So, as always, we start off the podcast by asking you to make a few predictions about the AI industry as a whole. So, first up, in 5 years' time, how do you see humans and AI collaborating in work? And how do you see that changing maybe in 15 years' time?
That's an interesting question. In 5 years' time, uh, I think probably starting 5 years, definitely in 15 years, the main thing that occupies my brain, the main prediction I base a lot of the stuff I do on is the kind of this notion that you're not gonna win, you're not gonna build good AI products with machine learning engineers anymore. The real AI builders that are going to exist in 5 years' time and 10 years' time are non-technical subject matter experts. These are people who are going to be the ones interacting with LLMs. Yeah, you'll still have machine learning engineers building new models and stuff like that. In that 15 years' time, uh, I'm a. We can go into a whole AGI rabbit holes, of
That's
course,
the
but
next question. Yeah.
and we will, I guess. But I believe in I don't believe in a single model supremacy. I think we're going to be in a world with lots of different models for different things, big things, small things, or big models, small models, specific tasks, and you're going to be mixing and matching. I don't think, yeah, I mean, I don't know if these are as crazy of takes as I should be giving, but I think we're going to have a lot of models. I think there's going to be a lot of competition for the models. I think people are going to be using them. It it's gonna. I think we're gonna have a kind of a industrial revolution style change, but in terms of AI assisted work.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And how many years do you see us being away from AGI?
Depends what AGI is. Uh, I
Your
I'm one of the
definition.
more yeah. So I guess if we're gonna go to the crazier definition of sentient AI and AI that can think, I don't even know if I believe in that. But even more so, I kind of think it's a boring thing to think about. I think the more interesting thing to think about is just how do we use these powerful AGI like tools, and how are they going to affect the work we do, and what types of work are they going to create? I'm not worried about AI killing humans and taking over the world.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
more interested in the AGI definition of when is AI going to automate 90% of jobs? And I think the technology for that is already here. And I think the really interesting question is when it automates it, what's next? What's it going to create?
Yeah, so the future's already here. It's just distributed unevenly. I think it was William Gibson said that, wasn't it?
Yeah, where we have the invention gap that the technology is here, and now we gotta get the low hanging fruit. Uber wasn't invented the day the internet was created. It took some time and some abstraction levels that need to be created. O1, for example, OpenAI's O1 reasoning model. I'm pretty sure it's standard models plus some prompt engineering plus maybe some tree interesting pruning stuff, but it's a linear combination of the technology we already have.
Yeah, okay. And thinking about the economy or the global economy, like, do you see AI as increasing wealth inequality, or do you think it's going to narrow gaps in opportunity in the future? Which kind of direction, or is that going to be like a messy vision as kind of nature and humans tend to make?
I think it's going to get a lot worse, and then it's going to get a lot better.
Okay.
We'll probably, for sure, there's going to be a lot of jobs that are not going to exist, and I think my mental model is that the AI assisted roles are going to be 10 times more productive, or maybe 100, or maybe 1,000. So instead of needing 100 workers to do something, now maybe you just need one. Maybe just everybody's more productive. That's going to increase inequality, of course, but I think we're going to retrain it. I think it's going to be drastic, but how many roles and types of work have been bottlenecked by language? Nothing's bottlenecked anymore because we basically solved language and the problem of understanding language and outputting language. If you think about a sales cold calling job, just to pick a random example, that's bottlenecked by how many people can you call in a day. That no longer exists. Now you can blast out conversations because we've solved language, is how I think about it. And given that, it's hard to imagine how many new types of work and how many new jobs that's going to even create.
Yeah. Okay. And just in terms of your kind of conversations and the events that you go to, like what do you see as being the next kind of jaw drop AI moment, which is, has that ability to cut through from like the tech business world, like to kind of wider sort of culture and society?
Yeah. I mean, entertainment is an obvious one. Videos, Sora just did a public launch. That's obviously really incredible technology. There's a lot of incredible image video creation technology, but I'm going to go back to the thing I just said, which is, maybe I'll explain a little bit more of how I think about these things, is that everything goes back to the solution that we solved of taking unprocessed language data, like us talking together, and turning that into something a computer can understand, and vice versa. So the next jaw-dropping thing, there's probably hundreds of jaw-dropping drops that come from just applying that to a new field. Can we apply that to, can someone blast out conversations to find good deals on homeowner and buying homes, and just buy up homes across America that there's a good alpha for? Maybe, because it was bottlenecked by talking to people before.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's like, it's almost a bit like the start of the internet, isn't it? Just like there's so many different applications available now, and it's just gonna people taking them up one by one, I guess.
Yeah, we're gonna make new web browsers for sure in the internet metaphor. Like there'll be new model families. ChatGPT app is great. Claude is doing, Anthropic's doing great stuff. Google is doing great stuff. But wait for the combinations of everything when the real use cases are coming out. That's way cooler to me than whatever O2 or GPT-5 is going to be.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So before we jump into PromptLayer, could you just give us like a really quick kind of background on yourself in terms of, growing up, like your life, what got you into tech and programming in the first place?
Yeah, happy to. I'm originally from the great state of New Jersey. I grew up there. I got into coding when I was pretty young. I used to play guitar when I was very young, and then I learned to code, so I dropped the guitar and never got too good at that. And learned to code in like middle school or something like that. Then I got really into planning like hackathons and these computer kind of competitions, where the coolest thing for me, and this rings true today, and I think LM's kind of double down on that, is just this concept that you can go start with zero and then come out at the end of these events, like in 24 hours or 48 hours, with something, going 0 to 1, and just building something that you had in your head, making it real. So got really into that, planned a lot of them, planned the first high school one back then, I did work for companies like Intel to help like strategize sponsorship around them. I actually met my co-founder like over 10 years at one that I was organizing. And that's how I really got into kind of these communities, the hacker communities, the builder communities. After that, I bounced around, did some jobs, took a year off, worked at a company called, it was called Implicit back then. Then it was became Salesforce in Tel Aviv. And then I went to UC Berkeley studying EE and CS. Did that for 4 years. That was fun. And then I graduated, worked at a company called Tecton, which is an MLOps feature store company.
Yep.
Basically, the Uber ML team came out, spun out into it, worked there. And then we started this, bounced around again, did some like data science consulting, that sort of thing. And then my co-founder and I started this company 3 years ago.
So I guess what got you into coding and the hackathons, like going from 0 to 1, like that's a very natural move to then entrepreneurship and company building, right?
Yeah, back then, me and there's like a whole group of student hackathon organizers. We'd all think that it was kind of like we were role playing being a founder, and none of us knew how different from being a founder it was. But it was,
Yeah.
I think the nice thing with event planning, it's nice and terrible, is that just it's super stressful right before it, and you're just doing all this stuff, and you're getting all this stuff done, and there's a real deadline, and you have to make it happen. Startups just that always.
Yeah, yeah, just 24/7. Yeah.
And you have all the axes, the fundraising, the marketing, you have all that. But I think the big difference is failure is much more of a like, it's easier to fail in the startup. The hackathon, you plan the event, worst case, nobody comes.
Yeah, it goes well or it doesn't. Yeah, and you try again. Yeah, I suppose you can always try again with a startup as well, can't you? And often people do. But I know what you mean. Like, there's much bigger sort of sunk costs, I suppose, is the word, isn't it?
Yeah, and more people are relying on you. I find that motivating though. I like that. I like it, without stress, I can't do good work.
Yeah. Okay. So let's jump into PromptLayer then. So do you want to kind of introduce kind of what the company does and your market?
Happy to. So we're PromptLayer. We're a prompt engineering platform, and what that means is we do a lot. We do prompt management, prompt versioning, prompt testing, evaluations, observability, monitoring. We have this whole spectrum of kind of tools that our platform helps with, and it's all in service to this core problem of how do you create a new version of a prompt, and how do you know that the new version is better than the old version? Especially, how do you do that as a team? So that's why people come to our platform. They kind of want a rigorous way to build the source code behind their AI application. And I think the big insight we bring to this, which I kind of mentioned earlier in my like future takes, is that we believe the AI builders of the future, it's not like the ML engineers are not the right people to do prompt engineering and to build AI applications. The right people are the subject matter experts. If I'm
Hmm.
building a legal contract AI tool, it's not going to help if I'm a software engineer personally. I don't know what these contracts are supposed to look like. I don't know a lot of these terms. You really want the problem solver to be in the driver's seat, as opposed to we see a lot of companies where you have this domain expert who's maybe a QA tester and he tells the engineers, "Oh, it's broken here." You're going to build a better product if that's the person building your whole system. And ChatGPT, I like to say that my grandma knows how to use the ChatGPT app
Yeah.
and she talks to it all the time. It's just input to output. And as long as you understand kind of the scientific method around testing inputs and testing outputs, that's prompt engineering. And that's all you need to know. So we're really putting this, we're putting LLMs into the hands of domain experts and kind of trying to create a new field of knowledge work, trying to create a new uh, persona that is an AI builder of the future.
So when I was looking at PromptLayer earlier, like one of the first things that popped into my head was like the Isaac Asimov books, because it seems like there's a bit of a distinction between kind of engineers who code the systems, but then almost like characters from the Asimov books who are like AI researchers, but they're almost like psychologists or guides, like trying to tease things out of like the AI systems. And it seems like we're kind of moving more to a future where it isn't kind of tech experts, but as you said, kind of subject matter experts who are going to be kind of shaping AI behavior in the future.
Yeah. What are these books? I'm sorry.
You know that Isaac Asimov books and all his short stories on AI.
Maybe I don't. I don't know. Maybe I do, but
He's a very
maybe I'm
famous
blanking.
sci-fi
I'm
author.
blanking.
Um,
Okay.
no, no, don't worry. I'll send you some links at the
All right.
end, but
I got some.
you'll
I
love
got
them.
some.
I promise you. But yeah, I mean, one of the things I was thinking about is like obviously LLMs can be tricky to work with because the outputs can like vary very much, and it's very difficult to get kind of accurate, reliable outputs. So how does kind of prompt engineering ensure that kind of quality and consistency that companies are looking for?
Right. Um, First of all, excited for that winter reading. But yeah, how to how do you use prompt engineering to ensure the outputs are correct? So you're right. The core problem here, and you have this problem in regular software engineering as well, where you put your product up on the web and users are going to use it in a way you didn't expect. And you're going to get bugs because someone clicked here instead of there, or because someone typed this. In the world of LLMs and generative AI, it's probabilistic. So you have that times 10. You not only are you trying to figure out how users might misuse your application, you're also trying to figure out how users might use your application and what the outputs are going to be. So it's extremely important to figure out where these edge cases are and figure out how your AI can go off the rails and just test things and do this in a systematic way where you could track it. And this is all to say that we we're not we're not giving users or advocating for a silver bullet saying like just use Sonnet 3.5 model from Anthropic and all your solutions will be solved. That's not the answer. That might be part of the answer, but the answer is figure out a methodology where you could test things and change things and then test them again, and try to shorten that feedback loop as quick as possible so you could test as many things as you want. And that's how you're going to build the best system that works all the time. You're not going to build the best system by taking a pen and paper and just thinking about what the best prompt is. Really, you have to try stuff. And it's I tell people all the time, LMs, think about that as a black box. Don't even, I mean, you could try to understand why they work. It's interesting, but
Yeah.
just try stuff.
And in terms of kind of the AI development ecosystem, like how do you see kind of prompt engineering, alongside things like fine tuning or kind of RAG systems? Are you kind of competing, or is there certain use cases which are better for kind of one versus the other?
Yeah, so you really want to use a little bit of everything. I think I consider prompts, RAG, fine tuning, maybe choosing which prompts to go in which order. Uh, there's a lot more here we can list, but I consider these all tools in the prompt engineer's toolkit. Uh, what I said before was important. You need to work on tightening the feedback loop in how quickly you can test things. So that's what you should consider when choosing the tools. So that's why always you should start with prompt engineering. It's the easiest to change. It's the easiest to go back, to rewind, to try new things. Fine tuning is a little bit harder because you have to train a new model, then test it out. So there's really like an order you should be trying these things out. You should be starting with prompt engineering, then you could throw in some RAG, then you can fine tune, then you go back. And you're always going to be iterating. You're always going to be trying new things. But yeah, I don't consider them competing philosophies. They're all different tools. You don't always want the power drill. Sometimes you want the hammer.
And obviously, AI is used in so many different areas of kind of business now, in like engineering and in research tools and in business applications. Are there kind of particular use cases that you see kind of PromptLayer being, very, very useful for at the moment?
Yeah. Uh, so we kind of try to keep our product as a general purpose prompt engineering tool. There's so many different ways people do it, but maybe I'll tell you some patterns we see. So we have a lot of customers doing, let's say, like customer, or let's call it a conversational AI. So this is like chatbots, customer support agents, sales associate bots, those sort of things. That's one group. Also AI coaches, another big example. So it's um, language learning apps, mental health AI,
Hmm.
parenting apps, those sort of things. So coaches, conversational AI are two big ones. And then we see a lot of kind of uh, hyper specific transformation use cases. So how do I generate a SQL? How do I generate a command to change the data? How do I do this kind of ETL? How do I transfer this data? And something that's like very unit testable. And then I'd say the last category is, we'll call these like AI hard problems. So something like, how do I summarize a call? That's hard because there's no ground truth to compare it to. Chats are hard too, but Usually a chat will be ending with a specific action, like issue a refund to this user, as opposed to a call summary. That's a really like you really need to think about how do I evaluate this? How do I test these prompts? How do I build this system?
And obviously prompt engineering is still at its kind of embryonic stage, I suppose, isn't it? You know, people are just starting to kind of think about it and formulate it as like an industry in itself. Like, how do you see it evolving? Like, are we, like you mentioned, we're going to have kind of subject matter experts who are prompt engineers. So does that mean, you know, we're going to have like somebody in a, you know, a law firm, for example, who is like the, you know, the prompt engineer for that particular company, but is not from a tech background, is, you know, from a kind of subject matter background?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, who knows? I'll tell you, if I had to put my chips on something, I think I think what you said is the truth. I think we're instead of having coders learning more about legal or coders learning more about mental health, I think it's going to be the opposite. You're going to have therapists learning more of a computational way to think and learning how to use the AI application. You're going to have these subject matter experts, these legal doctors, whatever, learning how to build AI systems and adding that skill to their resume. Just like I love talking about Microsoft Excel because I think there's so many parallels here because Excel,
Hmm.
it's just a database. They just took a database and said, hey, let's let people who don't know SQL access all the things SQL can do. And let's do it through a UI. And that's generally what it is. And that created a whole fields of new types of knowledge work. And generally, nobody's going to school for Excel, but it's a tool in their toolbox and they're learning how to use the tool. So that's how I see us trending, kind of prompt engineers specific in domains.
And how do you assess the current state of ethics in AI, like especially when we're thinking about prompt engineering? Like, so as AI tools become more powerful, like what ethical considerations should companies, you know, like PromptLayer be thinking about?
Yeah, I don't know. I say let it rip. I think, yeah, ethics matter, of course, but the use cases I'm most interested in are just how do we apply this technology and just make our work infinitely more productive? And I haven't. Yeah, there's ethics regarding IP and copying, like songwriting and that sort of thing. But Pandora's box is open, so I think just build cool stuff is the answer.
But I suppose there's an ethics of like the inputs, isn't there? But also thinking around like the outputs and companies, you know, being mindful of their reputation and things like that. If LLMs are kind of spitting out outputs which they
Right.
kind of weren't expecting, like how does can prompt engineering play a role in that in terms of kind of guardrailing like some of these systems?
Of course. Yeah. So I guess that's less ethics and more branding. And how do you really how do you get the outputs you want? How do you tune it? And in all these cases, a prompt engineer I spoke to at one of our customers said this well. If you're not getting the output you want, that's just a skill issue. You just have to prompt engineer better and use better tools and just work harder at it. If you are building, if I'm a brand, let's say I am Nike and I want to make a sales bot. Obviously, I don't want people to be able to inject things and have it respond weird things or recommend people to buy Adidas sneakers or something like that. And that's a doable thing. Obviously, given the probabilistic nature of these things, there's always it's always a cat and mouse, so it's never going to be 100% solution. But you can prompt engineer better. You can split it up into different prompts. You can have a prompt double check it at the end, and it boils down to the trade-offs of software engineering or engineering in general, where you can be more careful, but maybe the prompt response will take longer and more users will be upset. Or, and we see companies doing this a lot, you could just call it an AI feature or a beta feature. And then you can say, oh, well, we didn't know it was in beta.
Yeah,
Don't worry
exactly.
about
Yeah, yeah.
it.
And in terms of your platform, you mentioned the kind of skill point there. Is it just a platform for kind of managing prompts, or is it educating people in how to prompt better and giving them frameworks and like best ways of working?
Yeah. So we're not we put out a lot of content to teach people, and honestly, we get on calls with a lot of customers because it's interesting for us to learn and share knowledge between people. But our product is purely a operational product. So it's the prompt management workflow that you're doing to edit prompts, and we help you do that workflow. We're not we don't have webinar. We're not like a webinar company, or we're not a certificate company, but we're a company that is building a platform to help you do these things in the same way that Excel helps you crunch numbers. We're helping you build the source code behind your AI application. And as it comes to the skill issue of not getting the outputs you want, uh, you need to build robust testing. You need to just test more. You need to try more things out and make sure you're not regressing, because you could try everything out, but if you have no way to know which prompts are working best or which versions are working best, it's not going to be that helpful.
Okay. And in terms of company building, kind of more generally speaking, like how do you see like the future of kind of AI entrepreneurship? Because it's very, very easy for new companies to start now. Like there's an absolute explosion of startups in the AI space. What do you see as being the thing that kind of distinguishes the successful ones from the rest?
Yeah, the winners are going to be the ones with the subject matter experts. I think if you're building a, let's think of a random example. If you're building a, how about a AI pediatrician? How about an AI kindergarten teacher? We don't even have to get that controversial. If you're building an AI kindergarten teacher or a kindergarten tutor or something like that, you're going to lose if you're only hiring machine learning engineers. You're going to lose if you're trying to build out your own model. You're going to lose if you're focusing all your efforts on fine tuning an open source model. Unless there's like some specific reason you need to, you're going to lose by doing that. You're going to win by hiring kindergarten teachers and teaching them how to prompt. That's the best way, because the benefit of that is you're going to get more cycles, you're going to be able to test more things, and you're ultimately going to build the best product. And when your product goes up against the products that are all built by machine learning engineers, it's going to be very clear that the domain context you've built into your product is just much better.
And how do you deal with uncertainty in a startup at the moment? Because, I don't think we've ever had it where things are changing so fast, which I think poses new challenges to kind of startup founders. Like, how do you kind of manage risk, I suppose, when you're kind of thinking about building a company and making plans for, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years down the line?
It's hard. It's hard. I think we've dissolved this. A lot of people like to talk about how most of their journey was more planned than it actually was in real life.
Yeah.
And this is kind of dissolved that facade. I like to think PromptLayer, for example, we're a tool for people using LLM. So not only are we a startup that's building the airplane while we're in the air, we're building the airplane while we're in the air, while the laws of nature are changing, which
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
makes it even crazier. Like there's new models now, there's multimodal support, now there's streaming, now there's developer messages, blah blah blah. How should other founders think about it? You can only think about it so much, I guess. You can spend your whole life kind of predicting what's going to happen in the future, and you need to predict a little bit, but anchoring to real life is always the best. Is always what we've our antidote for this. We've been anchoring to what customers tell us, and lucky enough, since day one when we launched, we've had a pretty good flow of customers, both old and new, coming into our platform and giving us feedback. And we're just heavily anchored to them with a grain of salt where we're anchored to them, but we also say sometimes we need to give it a step function change, but we also need to be honest with ourselves that nobody might use it if it's coming from our brain and not from the customer.
Yeah. Okay. And what are some of the hardest challenges that you've had to face so far in terms of kind of building the company?
Um, Prioritization. We have so many things we want to build to make people's prompts better and help people make better prompts. And how do we balance new things with improving things we currently have on our platform? So it's there's a million things we could be working on. Just how do we put our time in the right place? That's the challenge. The challenge is obviously there's product challenges. Obviously, we're taking this new cutting edge technology and trying to let non-technical people use it, which is in itself a very hard thing to do. But in which chips do we put in which parts? And I don't think this is a unique challenge for
No, no.
PromptLayer. This is just the startup.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's kind of very, very common. I mean, one thing is quite interesting is like how much of an education point is there when you're talking to non-technical people and asking them to do something which I guess doesn't seem technical because it's just talking and language, but also just when they're kind of working with AI systems, do they perceive that as being technical anyway? And do you have to kind of educate them at all there?
It's a technical way of thinking that they have to be able to do. Again, this scientific method of inputs go to outputs. I will tell you, the way we got to this thesis was we had teams come into us where the main prompt engineer was non-technical, and we would dive further and be like, how did that happen? How are you doing this? And in most of those cases, the engineers on the team set up PromptLayer and then handed off to this new prompt engineer and said, hey, click on this and you could change this, and then you could open our app and you could see the new version. And generally, if you give them room to explore, people will find it fun and want. They're very motivated to figure these things out. So we don't have like a onboarding webinar. A lot of people just we don't even know who they are. They're just using our product. They just sign up on their own. But things could be better, and we're working on a lot of UX updates to make the onboarding process way better than it is today.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today, Jared. Just before you go, I just want to ask one question. Like in terms of prompts, like what do you use on a daily basis, which is like the most kind of valuable prompt for you? I guess you get asked that all the time.
Yeah. So I'm usually a ChatGPT guy. I use Claude for like I'll tell you my biggest prompts I'll tell you kind of my two favorite prompt use cases I use probably weekly, which is one, writing things like blog posts or I had a questionnaire I had to fill out for someone we're working with the other day. And what I'll do is I'll record a voice memo in my phone, whether I'm walking to the subway or just walking around. So I'm not at my desk and I can think better that way, pace around. I'll use Whisper to convert it to a blurb of text because that technology is great now. And then I'll paste it in my prompt, and then I'll paste in the questionnaire, and I'll like use my words and fill it out. That works perfectly. And then my second favorite is I'll use Claude to if I want to talk if I have like an idea for how we should design our new product page. And I'm not a designer, but so I can't do it myself, but I have something in my head. I'll use Claude artifacts to build it out, and it works really well. And sometimes I'll sketch it on a Post-it and send a picture to Claude and say, build this in React. And it's really good at getting an idea across.
And then you can kind of build and iterate from there.
I don't even use the code. I just take a screenshot of what it generates.
Okay, and there we are, and then you're done. Yeah, okay. Well, I really appreciate your time. If people want to get in touch and talk about PromptLayer, what's the best way to reach you? Is it email or LinkedIn? Where do you live?
Yeah, I live everywhere. You can email me at jared@promptlayer.com. I'm also on X on Twitter at IMJAREDZ. I'm Jared Z, or LinkedIn's good too. You can find me in a lot of places. And promptlayer.com, you can sign up for free.
Yep, great stuff. Okay, well, look forward to seeing how PromptLayer grows over the coming years, and best of luck with the rest of your journey.
Amazing. Well, great to chat.
Okay, thanks, Jared.